Hi, today I'm going to walk you through a basic installation setup of StorLogix on your PC. So to do that, I've already inserted the CD into the computer. We're going to go ahead and click on Run the Setup. Now the setup's going to come up and say there's a lot of things that I need to install first. These packages are prerequisites for installing StorLogix, so we're going to go ahead and do these first, and most of these you won't need to do anything at all other than just watch screens go by. So we'll go ahead and click on Install. So once the SQL Server installation is finished, then the installer for the USB drivers is going to come up, and this should be the first point at the install that you actually have to do anything. Now if you have a previous StorLogix system that you're upgrading, there's going to be an option in here to maintain or upgrade the existing USB drivers. You're going to want to choose that so that it takes the current USB drivers you have and updates them to the latest version included with this software. So we'll just go ahead and click Next. Through these steps, we'll agree to the terms, click Next. We don't need to worry about the destination folder, just click Next, and then Install. And then once it installs it, it's going to come up and ask us to run the driver installation, and we'll do that to go ahead and get everything set up. So right here we want to make sure that Launch the driver installer is checked, and then we'll click on Finish. This will open the USB bridge driver installer. Go ahead and click Install. We'll hit OK. And once this is finished, it's going to bring up the actual StorLogix software installer. Now for most people, all we're going to need to do is accept the terms of the agreement and then click Next through the different steps of the installer. If you need a more advanced installation, or you have had experience with installing StorLogix and you know how to use the custom setup, then you can go ahead and do that here as well. So now we're going to go ahead and install StorLogix, so we'll click Next and then accept the terms of the agreement. And the customer information, it's not really important that you fill these out, but we do want to make sure that the application is installed for anyone who uses this computer, or all users. And the default path that StorLogix installs to is in Program Files under PTI Security Systems. If for whatever reason you need to change this directory, you would do that here. For the most part, most people just install it in the default location. And then on this step, we're going to choose our database server. Now, a lot of people get very confused by this step about, well, what's a database server? In the prerequisite part of this installation, we installed a Microsoft SQL server that is kind of a stripped down version of it, specifically for use with StorLogix. And by default, it's installed to the path that you see here under the database server, using this login and password that are already pre-filled. So unless you're doing a networked installation where you have a server and several workstations, you shouldn't need to change any settings on this screen. So we'll go ahead and click Next. And for most people, a complete install is all that they're going to need. It's going to install all the software and all the features. A custom install is used, again, in the case of let's say a network installation where you have a server and a workstation. On the workstation, you wouldn't necessarily want to install Logix Server or the StorLogix Interface or any of those programs. So you would choose Custom Install, and then you would choose not to install those that way. Now for what we're doing here today, we're going to choose Complete and go on with the installation. And then we'll click Install. Now that the StorLogix installation is completed, we'll go ahead and click on Finish. And now, as you can see, the software here is all installed and ready to go. So what we're going to do next is we're going to go through the basic configuration of StorLogix. So we're going to go ahead and double click on StorLogix. Now StorLogix is going to come up and see that there's nothing configured in the system. So what it's going to do here is it's going to walk us through a very simple configuration wizard to get us up and going quickly. This will take care of the basic configuration of most people's facilities. In the case that it doesn't, you can always do more advanced configuration within StorLogix later. So we'll go ahead and click OK to start the configuration wizard. Say yes, we want to run this. Now the restore point question at the beginning here is asking, would you like to use a restore point package to restore your site configuration? A restore point is a form of backup that you can create within StorLogix that not only backs up your data, but it backs up all your configuration files, sound files, report logos, all those kinds of things into one simple to use file. If you're moving StorLogix from an older computer to a new computer, a restore point package is an easy way to do that. You would have created it on the old computer. You would transfer it to the new computer, and then you would choose yes on this option to restore the restore point package, and it will go ahead and restore your database and all your files, and you'll be up and running in no time flat. For our case, we're doing a new setup, so we're going to go ahead and choose no for this option. StorLogix Configuration Wizard is going to ask us a few simple questions to get the site up and running. Now, it's going to pre-fill the site code, and the site code here is just a unique number that identifies your particular facility in your database. So StorLogix is going to generate a site code automatically. You can choose to use this. If you use store numbers at your facilities, you can go ahead and put in your store number here if you'd like. That's easier for you to remember. And then we're going to go ahead and fill in the rest of the information. Now anything that's shown in red here is a required field, so we'll go ahead and fill those in. Now under Site Manager, we're going to go ahead and put in a name either of a site manager or the owner that's going to be one of the primary accounts within StorLogix. This will be someone who is going to be using the software on a regular basis, and they will also have administrator rights within the system. And we'll go ahead and set a password. Now this password is going to be what they're going to use to log into the system. And when it creates their login, it's going to use their first name as their login, and then this password will be what you use to actually get into the system. Now the gate code here is if you're setting up the system new like we are and you don't yet have your management software installed and you want to go ahead and assign a gate code so that you can move in and out of any gates or doors that you have, you can go ahead and assign that here, and if you need to later, it can be overwritten by the management software, or you can remove it later if you need to. This is just a good way to get a code into the system quickly so that you can use any keypads or other access devices that you have. Now, access devices here, this is a quick way to tell StorLogix, here's the rough configuration of my facility. What we've discovered over the years is that a lot of facilities kind of meet a few basic configurations to start out with. So what you can see selected here is one keypad and one gate. Well, this generally means that there's a keypad or other access device that lets you in through the gate, and perhaps maybe there's a loop detector or some other presence detection device on the exit that will automatically open the gate. So what we suggest here is just to pick a setup here that's close to what you have, if not exact. You can do further configuration later in StorLogix. This is just to get you up and going quickly. So I'm going to choose the 2 keypads, 1 gate setup, which means we're going to have keypad 1 on the outside of the gate to let people in, and we'll have keypad 2 on the inside of the gate to let people out. And then here for the displays, this was a quick way to identify the types of keypads that you have. So if it's got a big display, it's probably an Apex. If it's got a pretty small display, it's probably a VP. We'll go ahead and click Next, and this is going to create our site for us. It's important to know that if StorLogix looks like it's stopped during this updating database process. It's still working. It's some parts of this take a little while to execute. Okay, now that your new site is installed, the next step here is to define what are your business hours. The better way to look at this is what are your customers' access hours, so what are your gate hours? When are you going to let people in and out of the property? Whatever that may be, you can go ahead and set that up here. And you can choose your open time right here on Monday. And then let's say we'll set a close time. And then if you want to copy these settings to the other days of the week, you just hit this double down arrow. And that will set everything the same. Now let's say, well, we're not open on holidays. And we're not open on the weekends. So you can go ahead and choose the closed boxes once you've set your hours for everything else. And then go ahead and click Next. Now this next part of the wizard is going to take us through setting up the communication between the computer and your Falcon XT controller. So what you're going to want to do here is once you've configured your XT, if it's connected through a USB cable, then this would be the step where you would choose, okay, it's connected to the computer with a USB cable. And on the next step, when you go through this, it's going to ask you to go ahead and plug the USB cable into the computer. You just need to find an open port on the computer that it can work with. And since we've already installed the drivers, it'll just come up and detect what USB port it's actually on. For our installation, we're going to choose a network installation. So we'll be choosing the third option where we'll say it's connected to the same local area network as this computer. And we'll go ahead and click Next. And then the configuration wizard is going to come up and say, hey, the firewall is not letting me have access to this. So we're going to go ahead and say allow access so that the configuration wizard can communicate through the firewall to any devices on the network. And any XT that is sitting out on your network that is connected to the Ethernet or network cable is going to go ahead and let us know, hey, I'm out here. So what you'll be looking for is your serial number, and the site code really shouldn't be set at this point. It's also going to show you what the current IP address of the XT is. For our purposes, we're not going to be setting any kind of fixed or static addresses on the XT, so that part's not really going to matter. All we're looking for is this is the XT that we want to talk to. Now on our system, obviously, we have several XTs that have shown up. On your system, generally, you're just going to have one, and it's going to be the one that is either in the office or in the maintenance closet, wherever it's installed, or under the desk. And that's the one you're going to be looking for here. So we're going to go ahead and choose that one. And again, you can choose to have the XT get its network address automatically. This is the default. This will work for most people out there in the field. If for whatever reason you need to give the XT a static or fixed network address, if your IT people say, hey, the XT's got to be on this address, then you would use the second option to set that up, and that's a bit more of an advanced option. And I'd recommend that you have an IT professional walk you through that. So for us, we're done here, so we're going to go ahead and click Done. Yes, we want to save. And then the last step here is just to choose which management software we're going to be using. Now, the StorLogix system interfaces with a wide variety of management software platforms, and some of them may not even be listed here that still use our interface or that we've provided interface examples to. So what you're going to look for here is, do I have SiteLink? Then it would be down here for regular SiteLink, or if you have the web version of SiteLink, you would choose SiteLink Navigator. Do I have Domico? Do I have CenterShift or Cerasoft? Whatever it may be that you have, you just choose that here, and this will go ahead and set up the interface on our side to automatically work with that software once it's installed. And then we'll go ahead and click Done. Now at this point, your system is done with a basic configuration, so we'll open StorLogix again. And this time it's going to ask us for a login. Now what you can see here is that it's brought up the site code that we set up along with the name that we set. And since there's only one, there's not really much to choose there. The system does install a default administrator account that you can use, and they have unlimited access to everything in the system. I highly recommend after any installation that you change the default administrator password from its default, which is admin, to something else that's a little more complicated so that people can't just get into the system because they know the default password. If you do change it, make sure you write it down somewhere or that you keep it in a notebook or something so that if a tech support representative from PTI needs to get into the system, that they have access to that password. For now, we're going to choose John as our login because that's the guy we set up, and we'll go ahead and put his password in and then click on login. When you purchase StorLogix, it will come with a serialization code that's going to start with SL dash and then a bunch of numbers and letters. This is the point at the install where you go ahead and enter that license information, and that will unlock your software so that you can use all the features that you're entitled to. If you want to just try out the software for 30 days and kind of poke around in it and learn it, you can do that even without an XT, and just click on Continue Demo to do that. StorLogix has a feature built into it where we check periodically to see how long it's been since the last backup was made in the system. Definitely highly recommend that you create these on a regular basis, that you keep them either on a USB flash drive or on an external hard drive or in a Dropbox account, anything like that where you can keep it off the main computer so that if the worst should happen and this computer does go down, you'll have a way to quickly recover it and get back up and running. Now for our first time setup, it's going to ask us which kind of view we want to use StorLogix in. StorLogix includes a classic view, which is designed to be more like Falcon 2000. So for customers that are used to working with a Falcon base unit and Falcon 2000, this is a view that's more tailored to them. The default StorLogix view includes more functionality and more wizard-based type activities. So for this demo, we're going to go ahead and choose StorLogix. And then we're going to go ahead and allow the interface and logic server to communicate through the firewall. And what you'll see is it opened the StorLogix interface, which is currently set to a preview mode. This is so that once you get your management software installed, you can double check that the information that's coming through is set up correctly before actually processing it into StorLogix. Because you don't want to end up in a situation where you just processed the file that it gave you and found out that it wasn't set up right, and so you had to change it, and now you've got a bunch of duplicate units that you got to clean out of StorLogix, and it just kind of becomes a big hassle. So this is a way you can verify the settings of the interface before actually processing any data. And if you need to change any settings in here, you can just select the interface and click on Edit. And we're going to leave the preview mode on for right now. And again, it shows the software we chose, the default settings, all the file paths, along with a few additional options that you can choose for your interface depending on what you need. This window does not have to be running or open for the interface to work. The interface is actually a service on the computer, and it runs all the time in the background. Now, Logix Server was also open, and you'll see that that's the little L here down in the tray. And you can see that Logix Server came up based on the network settings that we provided, and it connected right to the Falcon XT that we chose earlier. And if you want to see more information about that XT, you can do the Help About. and it will show you version information, what kind of device you're talking to, the serial number, what firmware version is in it, what the site code is set to, things like that. We're up and running talking to the Falcon XT, and our interface is ready for our management software. There are other screens and options that you have here in StorLogix. If you'd like to learn more about them at any point in the software, you can press F1 and it will bring up a contextual help file that can walk you through some of the setups and through some of the screens that may be a little bit more difficult to understand right off the bat. We also invite you to visit our website at www.ptisecurity.com. We have a great resources section, and if at any point during this process you've run into an issue or you have a question you just can't figure out the answer to, you can always submit a support ticket at support.ptisecurity.com. Thanks for watching.